Hi, I'm Mary Barr Rhodes with Conscious Dimensions, and I'm going to interview Dr. Deborah Ooten today. So Deb, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we're doing a series of videos. One that we did last week was on the Enneagram, now spiral dynamics. And then of course, next week will be on her work. The coupling of the Enneagram and the spiral. And then we hope to finish up with the process Enneagram. So I want to tell you a little bit about Deb. She has a doctorate in clinical psychology. She studied the Enneagram and spiral for many years. And she has offices in Cincinnati, Ohio, as well as Asheville, North Carolina. And now she has even established a school of conscious living in the Middle East. It's located in Egypt. And one thing that I forgot to mention last time, she's now on the staff of Shift Network. So congratulations on that placement.
Thanks.
So she's getting her word around the world. So thank you for that. It needs to go around the world. So today we want to briefly talk about the spiral. And just wondering if you could first just begin, the Enneagram's a little better known, but the spiral is not. So if you could just start with a definition of what even spiral dynamics is, would be appreciated.
Okay, well, there are a couple of versions here. So let me talk about Gravian theory. So Claire Graves was the one who originated the one that I've studied the most. And I've studied with Dr. Don Beck and Chris Cowan and Natasha Todorovic. And so they follow his theory. Now there is an integral theory that Ken Wilber has out there. I don't follow that. I love his work on everything except the spiral. So I have a tendency to stick with the Gravian theory. And basically, it's talking about the evolution of humanity from about 100,000 years ago until now. We're looking at two things, and primarily we're looking at life conditions, and those are paired with mental capacity. So how we think about what we think about. So the life conditions are circumstances, problems, places, and time. So, it's a different time here in Asheville, North Carolina today than it is in Cairo, Egypt. It's a different time, even though it's the same date and same time. So things are different because the cultures are different. And so this system, spiral dynamic system, has a tendency to track what we call V memes, value memes. So each level of consciousness, and they're color coded. Basically these V memes are like information or energy cores that radiate, commands, instructions, cultural programs throughout every human being, all people. So we have a tendency to know them. So a value meme is, what are the values at each level of consciousness? What does each level value, basically? So they're called V memes, if you will.
Wow. Okay. Can you talk a little bit about Graves and the origin as well, and then, kind of move forward with the different perspectives?
Yeah. Well, I don't know the one perspective. So
well, besides that one,
I know of it. Claire Graves started this research. God, I think it was like I think it was 1950s. I'm blanking on that all of a sudden for some reason. And basically it's a system that looks at how, like I said, how we think about what we think about. So it's our mental capacity. And as we evolve, our capacity expands. And this system is an emergent system, meaning it just continues. It's continuous until we're not. We're not here, it won't continue.
Right.
So basically we're looking at Claire's research. His research involved adults 18 and over. So you might be able to extrapolate this to kids, but for all intents and purposes, it's an adult model. of evolution, if you will. What else did you want me to say about that?
And where did his work originate?
So he was a professor at a university in New York. And
Okay.
basically what happened was lots of the professors, he was a contemporary of Maslow, Abraham Maslow, and a lot of people, a lot of teachers left the college for, I think, some sort of, involvement in like a war or something. And so his students, so he was teaching, Claire was teaching all of the psychology courses, and his student says, well, which one is the best? Which one's the best? And Claire's like, you know what? I don't know. So he asked his students to do a paragraph that talked about what a mature adult looks like in humanity. And then it was a double-blind study. Then he took that information and his teaching assistants put them in different piles according to, oh, this one sounds like this one, so it goes in this pile, and this one sounds like this one, and it goes in this pile. So like I said, it was a double-blind study. They would just read the stuff. They didn't know what they were doing, like, because they coded it with the alphabet. A-N equals beige, B-O equals purple, and so forth and so on. So he just divided the alphabet in half, is what he did.
Wow. Okay. And then you mentioned Cowan.
Yeah.
At what time did he come in, or how did he get involved?
Well, Dr. Beck and Chris Cowan were good friends, and they knew Claire Graves. They studied with Claire Graves.
Oh, so they were good friends. Okay.
Yeah, they were good friends and they taught together. And then over time, as happens, people find their own way. And I think, Don just died recently last year, and Chris died a couple of years before that. But Chris was married to Natasha, and they lived in Texas, which is where Don lived, and that's how they got together. Well, Natasha, according to the story, Natasha said she wanted to live in California, and so of course Chris went with her. And so they went in their divergent paths. So I first studied with Dr. Beck. I studied with him in Washington, D.C. Oh my God, so many years ago, I don't even remember. And he certified me to teach the spiral. Then I studied separately with Natasha and Chris out in Santa Barbara for a two-week course with them, which, all of the theory is the same, basically. When Claire died, Claire's widow gave all of the writing that Claire had done to Chris and Natasha. So they basically own the spiral dynamics. Natasha still to this day collects data from every place that she goes on in the universe to keep updating this. And my students contributed to that for years and years and years. So like I said, all of his writings, all of Claire's writings went to Chris and Natasha, so they own it. And they published a book called The Never Ending Quest posthumously and put Claire's name on it. So they wrote it, but Claire's name was on it because it was really all of his writings and teachings, if you will.
Right. Okay. Somehow in my head, I thought there were different perspectives, but really what you're saying is they studied under him and it was the same perspective.
Yeah, Chris and Don and Natasha, same perspective. So at some point, Don had a little, get together with Ken Wilber, and they, they started, I think it was SDI, Spiral Dynamics Integral, which then Ken owns, he now owns. And to tell you about that, they didn't get along. That's how it goes. And so they went their separate ways. And, Ken made some changes to the spiral that I think is just confusing. I wish he had not done it, but, everybody gets to do things. People probably wish I hadn't done, the combo of the spiral and the Enneagram. But anyway, so I have friends who studied with Ken Wilber, and Of course, I studied with Ken Wilbur on everything prior to spiral dynamics integral. So that theory is just a little different, basically.
Okay. Okay. Well, of course, what everyone wants to hear about are the memes. So can you start us off on, I guess we'll start with the beige, which
Yeah,
goes
so
way back.
yeah, 100,000 years ago, basically,
Yes.
over 100,000 years ago. So when we look at beige, what we're looking at is instincts. So when we think of the instincts of the Enneagram, I see those at beige. And when you look at the spiral visually, you'll see that a beige line runs all the way through every meme above it. So instincts, sexual, social, self-preservation, are found here. This is where they came to roost. And it's our instincts, they don't go away. You know, and some people like to stack them, and some people like to do all kinds of things with them, make them what are they, subtypes. And I have a tendency to just put them in the spiral and really look at it from that perspective.
I did not know that. That's interesting. The
yeah.
beige line goes all the way up. Makes sense now that you say that.
So it doesn't matter how conscious you are,
Right.
your instincts will override it, because the instincts are there to keep you alive. So your instincts will override your ego, which is our type, and so forth. So, you know, something interesting to note, I think.
No, I think that's interesting. I didn't remember that they went all the way up with you, but it makes perfectly good
So
sense.
like in beige, you don't have any color except beige. And then the next color, and by the way, these are alternating, if you will, or cyclical. So starting with purple, we have a we meme. So we go we, and so forth. And so purple came on board about 50,000 years ago, basically. And as I said, it's a we meme. And it's the best way to describe it is as a animistic meme, where the ancestors, you know, and our traditions really keep us going and keep us alive. And so that's I'm not going to do justice by these in 20 minutes, but the red meme is the next meme, and it's an I meme. And it is basically about the powerful self. It's, you know, it's where we get our chutzpah, if you will. And in the red meme, we have a tendency to see people in two camps, predator and victim. And so might makes right here. And so the more the bigger, the better kind of thing, you know, and often it's associated, red is associated with 8s in the Enneagram. So that's kind of an interesting.
And your root chakra. And
yeah. Well, I don't
energy.
I don't add the chakras to it, but yeah. So the next meme is blue. And so what happens is we develop problems. Purple, a we meme, developed problems. Red comes in to take care of that problem. And the problem was that we didn't, you know, enjoy always being a part of a clan. And so then the blue meme comes in to take care of the red meme, which was out of control, you know, hostile. It was not an easy place to live in, if you will. And the red meme, I think, did I say it came on board 25,000 years ago?
25,000 years ago. Okay.
Yeah. So you'll notice as we go along that time is accelerating. So
yes,
blue came on board about 5 to 10,000 years ago. And, you know, so if you start to think of it that way, again, it's another we meme. I have a tendency to see it as about the institutions, education, finance, government, you know, those kind of religions. Yeah. Those kinds of things. And that's where we see the traditional values that are held there. So then blue gave us fits as well. You know, all of this whole thing is a problem solving system. And it's in part based on the chaos theory, chaos, order, chaos, order. Okay.
So that makes perfectly good sense.
Yeah. So about 300 years ago, orange came on board, and orange is, if you think of it, that's 300 years ago we got the printing press. which
Yes.
changed the world.
Yeah.
And this was a period of enlightenment. And it again is an I meme. And so it's about expressing myself in a way that is strategic, maneuvering. You know, it has the same kind of powerful sense that the red does, only we don't want to piss anybody off in orange. And so think of all the things that we got in orange, everything that we have today, everything, computers, you know, this platform all comes from the orange meme. So it's kind of hard to go, well, what's wrong with that? What's the problem there? What causes a problem there? Well, again, you know, hedonism is not always good. And we can see now just in our present day that, you know, money rules the world and it's not always the best thing. So green comes on board and it's kind of an egalitarian meme. So it's basically all are welcome here. You know, what turns on also here is relativity. So, and it came on board, excuse me, it came on board about 150 years ago.
150 years ago.
So it took 100,000, then it took 50, then it took 25, then it took 5 to 10, and then it took 300 and now 150. So you see time's accelerating.
Very much so.
Yeah, and so this is all are welcome here, but not really. They're, you know, it's sort of like, you know, we want to accept everyone, and empathy also turns on here. So empathy and relativism turns on here. So you can see that our thinking in blue, for instance, is absolutistic. And by the time we get to green, it's relativistic. Okay, so our thinking morphs. So blue, absolutistic, orange, we would say is sort of multi-dimensional. There are many ways to solve a problem. And then of course, relativism with green.
So we're back to a we meme again now.
Yeah, we're back to a we meme. Now, when we move into second tier consciousness, Claire Graves called this a momentous leap for mankind. I say humankind. Excuse me, I have the hiccups. So when you look at that, yellow came on board around 50 years ago. It is an I/we meme because, and I say that because in yellow or in second tier consciousness, it's about collective individuality. It's about, if we look at yellow, I'd say left brain with feelings. As in turquoise, I'd say right brain, no feelings. And the reason is because it all becomes like a meshwork in second tier. Everything is connected. There are no separations. There's no division, if you will. And so it's about expressing oneself, having functionality, multidimensionality, and at the same time doing no harm. Now, that doesn't mean that people who conceptualize in yellow, that doesn't mean that they're not harmful at times, because they can be, because they're also, you know, you don't live just in one meme. You could be in, you know, they're transition. They're like wave signatures. And so you can transition.
I want to come back to that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so yellow, but all second tier is about interconnectedness. But yellow, give us yellow specifically now.
Okay, yellow is about the integrated self, basically. It's really focused on, like I said, left brain with feelings. It's about collective individuality. It's some examples of how to conceptualize around yellow would be like the movie The Matrix, or Star Wars movies. You can see some of that in there.
Yes.
Yeah, and so basically it's a big picture. This is a 30,000 foot view when you're in second tier consciousness. You have the capacity, because your mental capacity has expanded. So we would say you're more conscious, and consciousness here is about mental capacity, how you think about what you think about. And so it has expanded to include just about everything that you can think of. When we get into turquoise, which turned on about 30 years ago, we have a we/I meme. And so again, I don't know if I said this, but only about 1.5% of the world population has expanded their consciousness to second tier.
Wow.
Now,
Wow, that's so
1.5 is
low.
still
Yes.
millions. It's still
Yeah, but
millions.
still, it's so low though.
Yes, it is so low because we're
Don't go
interesting
there. Yeah, don't
beings.
go there.
Yeah.
Don't go there.
Yeah.
That's another conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let me just give you an example. Predominantly in the United States, we are blue orange.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah. So,
And in other countries?
well, I mean, it depends on where you are. You can find all of the, the memes in all of the different countries. Like in Japan, you can see purple and orange all in the same city block, if you will. The rice paddies over here that are maintained, and then the high-rise buildings. So you can see these things just about everywhere. Even in Cincinnati, Ohio, you have gangs. That's more red. So, that's more red. So we can look at things from that perspective, if you will. So, yeah. And in turquoise, I just want to highlight that we basically, the world is a single organism, operates as a single organism. Now I said the world. The self is distinct and it's blended into the whole. So you and I are not separated from the whole of the, I'll say the universe, of the world.
Collective consciousness.
Yes. Right.
Okay, tell us, is there something more specific about the turquoise?
Well, I can say, it's it's hard to describe. We don't have a lot of data points on it because less than 0.5% of humans are there. So we don't have a lot of data.
Right.
But basically it's about the collective. And we think of it as a meshwork. It's a woven meshwork. Everything is intertwined.
Yes. I guess I kind of was thinking that turquoise was a lot about energy. Things were seen or felt or recognized more on an energetic level. And that's why you can relate to the collective consciousness. So I guess that's what I was, that's what I'm asking. Is it more on an energetic level?
Well, they all have their own energies, right? Just like all humans have their own energies. Absolutely. So when we're in turquoise, we're in an expanded consciousness. So the energy is universal. It's big. And so, it's impacting, it's like little particles, like what are those particles? They're the little teeny tiny particles that are constantly bombarding us and changing us. So energetically, we're being changed just by the things that we think about and how we think about things and how the rest of the world thinks about it.
Yeah, it's a beautiful time in that for me, because as an artist, I'm seeing science and art and spirituality kind of come together. So I love that.
Well, it is true in green, the secular and the sacred come back together. So in orange, the sacred was kind of nixed out, and now we do see it coming back together from green on up. Yeah. So I love that. We can, Mary, we could talk about spirituality at purple, red, blue, orange, green, yellow, turquoise, and it's going to have a different meaning. Yes. So one of the reasons I love this system is we can take a word like ego, and it means something very different at red than it does at turquoise. So we have to, so we have to be aware of it. Yeah, this is not a spiritual system. This is not a spiritual system.
I know, but I'm just saying in this time in history, it's a time of, people coming together on a cosmic level.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's really cool like that. It's just like, and it sounds so new age when I say that, but it's so true though. It's, it's a whole different ball game now.
Well, I can say it, in a different way. Let me think about it. What were we just talking about?
Well,
Oh,
it's how cosmic
yeah,
spirituality, I guess, or cosmic
yeah,
consciousness. Yes.
yeah, cosmic consciousness. That's another good way of saying it. It's multidimensional. It's holistic,
Yes.
holonic.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so,
Yes.
it's there. It's really hard to put your mind around it, actually.
It's really funny though, because everyone that I read now, Joe Dispenza, Gary Zukav, they're all, talking about the universal human and all. It's all based on this. It's just like,
It,
it really
it
is.
is. They don't know it necessarily. They might, but it's a sign of the times. Probably
It
the people that
is.
probably the people that you're reading are in second tier consciousness. So
Yes.
they're giving a different experience and they're able to take in all of these different things, science, just science, spirituality, all of the different
All of it.
dimensions.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes. And
exactly.
seeing the world through a lens of multiplicity. I just
Correct.
love that.
Yeah.
So, I want to go back to how we speak to each other. Because,
Okay.
if I'm in red, how many levels up can I still be heard? You know what, the conversation I'm going for here.
I think so. Um, so you can, how I'll say it this way. You can only understand and process to the level that you've arrived. So if you live in red, you cannot understand blue, yellow, green, orange. Can't understand it. It looks crazy to
Right.
you. That's why we have all the chaos that we have right now in the world.
Yes.
Because and how you would speak to red is, it's a brutal place, if you will. It's hedonistic.
Yes.
It's about pleasure. There's nothing that is there's nothing good. So if somebody comes at you from red and they've got a knife, you better have a gun, is the way I look at it, because might makes right. Remember, might makes right.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to speak to that language.
Mm-hmm.
Now, since I predominantly see myself in yellow, doesn't mean that I don't go to red or blue or purple or orange or green, because I do. And sometimes I can even conceptualize in turquoise. I don't live it as, on a day-to-day basis like I do yellow. And it's not a hierarchical system, Mary. It's just, different wavelengths is the way I'm going to talk about it. And
No,
so
I like that explanation. Wavelengths really works for me, because
yeah,
that's all about the frequencies.
yeah. And so when you're in yellow, I understand how to speak to red, blue, orange, green. I know what their values are.
Right.
And so if I know somebody's Enneagram type and I know their level of consciousness, I'm good to go. I can speak to them really, really well and help them to make changes easily.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the more expanded your consciousness is, the more places you can speak to, the more people you can speak to at their level. It doesn't work in the opposite.
True. Yes, but I think that's so true. I just see that play out in the world. Yeah. What else needs to be said about the spiral?
I think the most important thing to say about the spiral is it is, like I said, it's a double helix kind of, DNA strand, and it's looking for congruence. So are the life conditions, circumstances, place, time, problems, and my mental capacity, are they
in alignment, kind of?
Yeah, in alignment. If they're not, so like if my values, like let's say I am in green and I really don't believe in testing animals for products.
Right.
I would not be able to work for a place like Procter and Gamble.
Right.
Because so that would be the life conditions, and my mental capacity would be a hell no for that. And so it would cause you to be out of congruence. When you're out of congruence, this is where people come to me and I see, I do the spiral, like couples come to me and I do the spiral, and I can see where the rub is. Somebody's in orange and somebody's in green, or so I can speak to that listening to help bring congruence.
Yes.
It's a
Gotcha.
great system. It's complicated, but it's a great system. The other thing I would say is once you reach green, yellow, and turquoise, you're able to hold the paradox. So duality begins to fade away.
Yes.
And so, it's not this or that, it's this and that. And so you can hold the paradox, which I love. I love that.
I love that too.
Of course, when you get into, lower green, orange, and below, we're not holding the paradox. And that's why we've got these.
Yes,
problems.
worlds coming together. Okay. What about coral? Does it exist?
It
If
does
does,
exist.
what's going on what's going on there? Biological? Is that what it
I
is?
don't know. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can say it exists. It's starting to emerge, and my guess is it's AI. So AI is
makes
going to be a
sense,
huge
yeah.
part of it, would be my guess.
Yes. Well, that would
It's,
certainly make sense.
I've heard people say that in coral, you are dealing with who lives and who dies. You get to make the big decisions by the time you get to coral. Personally, I don't want to be in that decision making.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like interactions, like you said, between AI. Everything's kind of becoming virtual now. You chat with AI to write a blog, all these different things that are available that just weren't even available a few years ago.
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah, I mean, I think that's going to change everything.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Scary good. Scary good.
Yeah, exactly.
Scary good. So is there anything else? What else do you have?
I think we're good.
Wind us up.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. I really, believe in the Enneagram and spiral dynamics, these two systems. That's why I paired them. If you know these systems, you know how to speak to the listening of just about anyone.
And that's really what it is about, is speaking to the listening. Yeah. Listen to the speak, whichever.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much for your time. And next week we will get together again and talk about your work, your system.
Okay. Happy to do it. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Bye.
See you, sweetie. Bye-bye.